Man, I don't need a fancy college-educated script for this week's intro. This week we'll review something like it's a product or service when it's clearly neither. My name's Joe and I'm a narrator. See? It's not that hard, said the actress to the bishop.
So, you're trying to evade Imperial Star Destroyers when you decide to lead them on a wild goose chase through an asteroid field. Your sexually ambiguous robot informs you that the odds against successfully navigating said asteroid field are, well, astronomical. Feeling clever, you retort, "Never tell me the odds!" Congratulations! You've just demonstrated willful ignorance. And as you can see by our entirely original example, willful ignorance isn't always a bad thing. Like, say you have to go get a really risky operation done. Well, keeping your spirits up might be better served by avoiding a list of potential horrible outcomes on Wikipedia. That being said, willful ignorance is easily one of the greatest threats facing humanity today. I mean, it is literally the act of consciously turning away from anything that doesn't support your worldview or your preferred course of action. Whether it's a world leader choosing to ignore civil rights abuses in their own country, or a religious zealot throwing fecal matter in the general direction of empirical evidence, willful ignorance just plumb holds us back. Unfortunately, willful ignorance isn't anything new. Even St. Thomas Aquinas railed against what he called voluntary ignorance, where someone, quote, wishes of set purpose to be ignorant of certain things that he may sin the more freely. In law, it's referred to as willful blindness. Economists and sociologists call it rational ignorance. And in politics, it's called conservapedia. And let's face it, ignorance isn't bliss. That risky operation I mentioned earlier, it's going to be just as risky whether or not you decide to stick your head in the sand. You know those levees in New Orleans? They needed to be supported by more than a president's love for black people. Then again, remaining ignorant of the swirling, malignant, fiery, nuclear chaos that lives at the heart of the universe, arguably a creature, unable to be understood through mathematics, unable to be spoken about properly through any existing human tongue? Yeah, I guess I'd say ignorance is a good thing in that case. Anyways, cyclopean nightmares aside, it's hard to think of a single dilemma we face that isn't in some way sustained by willful ignorance. Even if you ignore environmental disasters like melting polar ice caps and oil spills, there's still racial intolerance and dudes sticking their junk into meat grinders on YouTube. It may have been best summed up by Stephen Colbert, who famously coined the term truthiness, adding in an interview afterwards that once upon a time people were entitled to their own opinions, whereas now people are entitled to their own facts. As he put it, perception is everything. It's not only that I feel it to be true, but that I feel it to be true. Worse yet, the dudes and ladies who dare to offer counter-evidence to these kinds of things are generally labeled as lecturing buzzkills. You know that guy who is really, really patriotic and thinks his country is the most peaceful, loving, incredible country on earth? Try telling him about his country's actual track record with war, or international rankings in healthcare, education, and infant mortality rates for that matter. Well, now you're being labeled a freedom-hating, pretentious, liberal, hippie douchebag, and your father's refusing to pay for your college tuition. So how does a person avoid succumbing to willful ignorance? Well, the bad news is that it can't be cured overnight, but the good news is it's still pretty easy to fix. You just gotta read. You know that politician that you don't like who did something nice for his grandmother? It still happened, even if you don't like him. He straight up gave his grandmother a call on her birthday. See, the world is complicated. Its history and its people are chock full of nuance. And because the world has so many dang problems, we here in a handful of minutes simply cannot come out in favor of willful ignorance. Not the most controversial stance, I realize, but still, wait for it. Wait for it. Yeah. Yeah. There we go.
Oh, great work, Oliver. Now there's an article about us on Conservapedia before we even have a Wikipedia article. This is almost as bad as when you accidentally uploaded the first episode of the show to Racist Tube. This is not a tube I like to be associated with, Oliver.
Isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like, say you have to get a terribly risky operation. The willful ignorance is quite possibly the greatest threat facing humanity huge manatees today. Then again, remaining ignorant of the limitless, malignant creature that exists beyond time and... God damn it, cut. Then again, remaining ignorant of the swirling, malignant, tumescent... It's like a $10 word for boner.